So where were you when John F. Kennedy died?
I think we were right here in Morehead City, I believe. Oh, that was what, 60, 68, 63, 63. Yeah, we were back on the East Coast because when you were born, we left and went to the West Coast, and then we came back. So we had to be right here in Cherry Point. That was um that was a sad time. I don't care who it was. There was dry. No, there was no dry eyes. Everybody was crying. I remember crying. I just could not believe it. I think I had my TV on because I was watching, soap operas, and I think they cut into it. What was his name? The
Cronkite?
huh?
Walter Con-
Walter Cronkite cut into whatever it was we was walking and said the president had got shot, and looked like I froze. I don't know if I was ironing or just watching TV or what, but I remember I had the kids down, had y'all down for your nap, I think. And when he said it's like I froze, like I heard it, but I didn't hear it. And then he repeated it again, and I think I sat down. I said, not President Kennedy. He was uh he was really loved. He was loved by white and black. Not that he was perfect, because I later in life, learned there were some things that he did, but he was a man, you know. So I had sense enough to know that he was not perfect, but I think he meant right for the benefit of the nation, and that's what the president's supposed to be about. He's supposed to be about seeing that the nation, citizens of the nation, is being treated right, treated equally as possible, you know. And I really think that's what he was about. And I just could not believe him. Nobody that I know of could believe that he was dead. And I'm telling you, I just cried. And I know Ray, his eyes was all red when he came home from work. And the neighbors, like my next door neighbor, we all the women was home, the men was at work, and we were all kind of met out there in front of our houses in a huddle, and we just could not believe it. You know, that was a sad time. And then later on, Robert got killed, his brother. Martin Luther King got killed, and it's just like the world was coming loose. I said the fabric of this nation is just ripping apart. And I'm telling you, in churches, I'm telling you, I mean, people were holding revivals and prayer meetings and all kind of stuff because it shook us to our foundation, you know. So I think churches that came together that had not been really affiliating together, they came together because I know uh, Logan Park, uh, Mount Pleasant, some of these other churches, downtown Norfolk churches, they all seem to come together, you know. So it was something. It was a sad time, especially for black people. You know, yeah.
60s, they were going to the moon.
It,
In the
it,
60s, the young men were going to Vietnam as well.
yeah, and that was another thing. That's what I said. It seemed like the fabric of the nation was being pulled and ripped. Yeah, because that Vietnam thing, people was protesting. Uh, the Vietnam veterans did not get the honors and did not get the respect that they should have because they still was fighting for the nation. But a lot of people did not care about if you fought over in Vietnam. You were like dirt almost in some areas. So they really didn't think it, like his name was Cassius Clay at that time. Muhammad Ali, he fought against it. He did not want to go into the service. He became, what is it, conscientious objector. So it was just a whole lot going on. And, Ray got caught up in that Vietnam stuff. He had to go overseas. So which meant that I was caught up in it. We left here and went to New York, and because he went to Vietnam, and that was not a good time for me to be there with my 6 children, and not knowing from one day to next whether I'm going to get a call or was somebody going to knock on the door and tell me he had gotten killed. And I remember 3 months that I didn't hear from him, and I'm telling you, I didn't know what to do. Right after that, I got me a job. I said, you know what? I cannot sit here and wait for Ray to send extra money, because they were only allowed to send so much money out of their check. Their allotment was only a certain amount. He put as much as he could in the allotment, but they made him keep a certain amount. And so what he would do, he would get money orders, and he would send me the rest of what he had. He would just keep money for like cigarettes or whatever, and he would send me the rest of the money for rent and taking care of the kids. And I said, something happened, and I won't be able to have money to take care of these kids. So I went and got me a job at West Seneca. And you know what? Sure enough, it was about 3 months. I didn't hear from him. And come to find out, the helicopter that was carrying the mail got shot down. So the mail that Ray had sent me was on that helicopter. So, and when Ray came home and he told me he didn't talk about it a lot, but every once in a while he would give me bits and pieces. And he didn't think he was going to make it back home, because he sent me one letter I got from him. He told me not to sit around waiting for him, make a life for myself, get somebody to help me raise some children. I mean, he had just put it out there, because he said when we got home, he said he really didn't think that he would make it back home, because he said a bomb fell right between, he lived right here and the general lived over there, and that bomb fell right in the middle. It just happened. It didn't go off. He said if it had went off, it would have blown everybody up in that area, with nobody been left alive. And Ray said one of the sad things that got him, because it made him think about his own children, he would see the children, beg and mangled and all that kind of stuff. He said he just couldn't take that, because he could see each one of y'all's faces, It's and I heard him and Jones and 1 or 2 other people talking about it, but he wouldn't talk about it around me, And it was so bad that I used to watch a show called Rat Patrol. It was about Germans, but I would not let y'all watch that, because I didn't want y'all to see nothing that had to do with war, And I finally stopped watching it myself. But it was a happy day when he came home.
Do you remember the packages that used to arrive?
Yes.
I remember him arriving with silverware and China doll dresses for
the girls. Yeah.
Each Christmas was a big deal.
Yeah, it was. He had all kind of stuff. I remember he brought me this beautiful, I don't know how many carats, but that diamond ring was bigger than this, and it sat up on my finger. And when I had that accident, my hand hit the concrete and just cut that diamond right off of my finger. Wasn't nothing left but the band. Yeah, but I didn't worry about that diamond. I was glad to be alive. They said I was lucky to be alive. Yeah, those were the days. I guess that's all. It takes all of that to make your life. Yeah, and it was fun time living around Lucille. While Ray was in Vietnam, got to know her and Hazel and them better, because I knew him as a teenager, when I was courting Ray. But then I got to know them as an adult. Hazel and I were the close one, But when I was in Lackawanna, Lucille and I became like that and still are, you know. So, and I remember your daddy said, don't let Mud, Uncle Bertie get under the hood of your car. Because they had a joke that Uncle Bertie, which was Ray's uncle, he was a little jackleg mechanic, that he fixed stuff with barbed wire and chewing gum and always have a bunch of bolts left over, you know. And but then he would tank around and he said, if this car breaks down, you go to the shop and have it done. Don't you let them get up under here. And I didn't. I sure didn't. But he didn't have to tell me because my stepdaddy had told me years ago, you go to the man that made it. Don't let no jackleg, no backyard mechanic tinker with your car that your life is at stake. And I remember that to the day. You think I want to tear it underneath my hood? Ain't no way, Jose.
The 70s.
Oh, yeah. Kids growing up. One by one, y'all started graduating, going off to the military and all of that. Oh, that was a good time. Chris and Tony, Chris and Carl, we called him Tony at that time. They thought they were something special. Carl thought he was women's gift. And I think the girls thought he was their gift too. Carl, everywhere you went, it was Carl West. Carl West and Christina West. Because Chris was in everything. And then here come Russell. Russell was in everything. Glee Club, Bang, you name it, they were in it. And backing up with Vicky, I really got involved because I remember Vicky and I were being on the school board book selection committee, and we had to go and read the books and evaluate them. And that was a big deal because you had to evaluate the paper, what it looked like, the glossiness of it or whatever, the ink, how the print looked, did it make sense, the subject matter. That was a big deal. I bet you we had about 19 or 20 categories to go through before we would recommend these books. And we had, I don't know how many books. I think I had English, math, geography or something. I had about 4 or 5 books, subject that Vicky and I had to evaluate. But that was nice going through that. And then we got to keep the books. So got to have 2 sets of everything, Yeah. And y'all graduating and going off to the military. And Russell graduated one day and was gone the next. Ray Jr. went in the Marine Corps. Ted went in the Marine Corps. And then here come Carl going in the Army. But that was wonderful. I was proud. I was a proud mama. I got a thing that said the toughest job in the Marine Corps is being a wife, being a spouse. That's the toughest job. Yeah.
You continued to work. Yes. Beyond the 60s and the 70s. What kind of work were you doing in the 70s? And
when we came back here to this area, the Cherry Point area, I got a job in Havelock working at Melbourne Cleaners, and started out in the laundry. Is where I was supposed to have been working, but I wound up inspecting dry cleaning, which was a cleaner or a nicer job, And from there, I moved to the front counter, and I really liked, although I never liked messing with anybody else's money, but I wound up doing that, and I kid you not, some paydays we would have almost $1 million. I mean, from all the base money, And I said, Lord, I never seen so much money in all my life, you know. But it was fun, and it was really you had to be so particular when you inspected the dry cleaning, because those creases had to be just right. Those chevrons had to be, that crease had to be right. Otherwise, if it wasn't right, you had to send it back. And even though I was on the first had moved to the front counter, I still inspected those uniforms. And like the Navy, those 3 creases on that collar, they had to be spaced exactly right. Couldn't be no double creases. Because sometimes when you press pants or something with a crease in it, while it's hot, the crease is there. But when it cools off, the original crease is there also. So you got a double crease. And you had to be
Railroad
sure.
tracks.
Yeah, so you had to be sure that that wasn't there. And I got a chance to meet all kind of officers and no stripes and all kind of sergeant majors and everybody, you know. And one of the things I did, uh, even before we moved, I started doing laundry. First of all, I was just doing chevrons, sewing raised stripes on. And somebody asked him, who sewed your stripes on? And he said, my wife. So this guy asked him, said, do you think she was sew mine? And he said, well, I'll ask her. So I did. And next thing I was in business. And then I found out I wound up ironing a guy's clothes. Then this officer saw where I had ironed it. He was in the Navy. So he wanted me to iron his shirts. So I did. Next thing I knew, this one was bringing me all these white shirts. I said, Lord, and I never liked messing with white shirts because they were scorched. Because you got to put starch in them, and they were scorched so quick. But I made some good money, I'm telling you. And that was way before I started working at Melbourne Cleaners. Yeah. And I've been working ever since. Even in New York, when I went up there, I got a job in West Seneca, and that was working at a occupational center for mentally challenged young people. Well, I call them young because some of them probably was older than me, but that was gratifying to see them learn how to tie their shoe, or learn how to comb their hair, or to button a shirt. I mean, something we take for granted, because the activity room was right off the kitchen. And I could see them going through their exercises, learning how to do stuff, you know. And it was so gratifying. So I guess this part of the family have always been tied up in some kind of medicine, the medical field, you know. And I look here we got Chris, you know, in the medical field, you know. So it's always been something there.
And you've continued to work in the hospitals. Tell us more about
Yeah,
how you continued working in hospitals.
yeah, and when he came back down here, I got a job, walked in off the street, and got a job at DePaul Hospital. I had 2 choices. I could have worked in the emergency room, registering people, or I could have went to dietary food service. Well, I said, I don't know if I want to be in the emergency room. So I chose food service. So I wound up going into the diet office, and I wound up being trained as a dietitian tech. I worked there, and I told you I've always been nosy and curious about the next step. And it was 2 white techs in there. The rest of us was black. And I noticed one day that they referred to Vicio and the other lady, I can't think of her name, as Tech 1, no, Tech 2. And we were Tech 1. And I'm wondering, oh yeah, it might have been vice versa. But I'm wondering, what was the difference? We doing the same thing. We all going doing diet instruction. We all writing diets and all this stuff. So we all on the tray line and all that. What's the difference? So I started asking questions. So I didn't get an answer from neither one of the white techs. So I asked the dietitian, I said, I have a question. I want to know what's the difference between a Tech 1 and a Tech 2? So she went on to understand the training, the experience. I said, well, my next question, I said, I know I just got here. I said, but in 6 months, if I'm still sitting in the same position, it's either something wrong with this job or something wrong with me. I said, so I want to know how I can make the next step. She said, Miss West, I don't have no doubt in my mind that you aren't going to make the next step. And before 6 months was over, I had made that step and was being moved out as a supervisor to go to Norfolk General. But the only reason I didn't get to Norfolk General is because when they found out that they was going to hire somebody outside of that hospital, they started raising Cain in the kitchen. So the district manager said, I'm not taking you over there because they will eat you alive. So instead, he sent me to Lee Memorial, which at that time was like across like a couple of blocks. You could walk from Lee, the old Lee, to Norfolk General. So he carried me over there, and I went over there as a tech. And the job was easier because at Norfolk, at DePaul, we had to calculate diets. You had to know how much sodium. You had to do tube feedings according to whatever the doctor's order was. You had to get food the right consistency to go into a tube. It was a lot in there. And plus you had a lot of classes to go to. Before, when I got to Lee, I was pretty much working as a supervisor, seeing that the trays that came down, that they were according to the menu, so I checked for that kind of stuff, the accuracy, and then check menus to see to it that the people didn't have something on there that they couldn't have. And then I used to carry menus back and forth from Norfolk General to DePaul. Not DePaul, Norfolk General to Lee Memorial. So I learned a lot. But from there, from working on train line, I wound up being cafeteria manager. From cafeteria manager, I wound up being food production manager. And I was moving so fast. And every time my district manager would come, he said, what's your goal, Mildred? What you got? I said, I want to be a food service manager. I want to go to, what did they call it? Format. Because I want to be a food service manager. He said, well, okay, we gonna work on it. Tell me your goals. What's your long-term goal? What's your short-term goals? And I would have it all out, let him know. What you gonna do to get there? I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do that. He come back, did you do such and such a thing? Yes, I did. Let me see. Okay, he would see that I've done what I wanted to do. So I kept worrying that man to death. And then he left, and another district manager came, which already knew me from DePaul Hospital. And he said, Mildred, what can I do for you? I want to go to Format. I want to be a food service manager. He said, I know. Mr. Warmel had already told me, he said, when you get there, first thing Mildred going to tell you, she want to be a food service manager. So we going to have to work on that. But I kept right on working. They sent me to school. And from there, I became a food service manager. I opened up Smithfield. I was the first food service director there. And I did, they say, I did an excellent job. I never got under 100 as far as inspections. Even at Lee, I never got under a 98 as a food service department, because I was on them guys when it came to sanitation and all of that, and I'm still like that. I'm funny about, don't be using my dish rag for everything, So I've been in food service in the hospital for my whole career.